Evening all, and welcome to the webinar. I'm George Anderson, and I just want to say thanks for tuning in. This is a reasonably impromptu webinar, though I did say I was going to do it about 2 weeks ago, and I postponed it last week because it was just a bit full on with the Plankathon. And I was thinking, oh man, I've stacked up against it again. But you know what? I'm glad that I decided to do it in the end, because this is a subject that I do want to share with as many people as possible. So I'm just checking I'm charging. There we go. I want to run out of juice halfway through. And sometimes I just need the pressure. I need to just get out there and bloody well do it. So this is the webinar on running and weight loss, and more specifically, why running is not the best way to lose weight and how to fix it. So we are going to go for about 30 minutes, and I'm going to tell you what you can expect from the webinar, and then hopefully we'll have an opportunity for a few questions at the end that I've seen from the Facebook group. And if you're in the Beginner's Luck Facebook group, that you have already started asking a few questions, some great questions in there, so I'll try and cover off some of those as well. But what can you expect from the next half an hour with me on a Tuesday night when you could be watching I Think I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here's on the TV at the moment. So good on you for being here instead, or maybe doing both, dual screening. But in the next half an hour, what I am looking at doing is going through some of the main reasons why running isn't the best way to lose weight. I do want to kind of pre-frame that, which I'll do in a moment, with this isn't me saying you shouldn't run. I mean, that'd be pretty crap if I was going to sit here and say, you know, as an author of a book on how to run, actually, you made a mistake, you've all been conned, it's a rubbish thing to do. I recommend it, I highly recommend it. And the next part of the presentation this evening is going to focus on how to fix it, how to plug the holes, and how to make it work for you. Because running really can be a fantastic weight loss tool, but not the way most people do it. I think that's the key here. The way most people approach running and have the expectations that the weight's just going to drop off, there's just so much disappointment with this mentality. And we're going to look at some of the reasons why that's the case. So stay tuned for that. It's about 20, 25, 30 minutes. To be honest, I have no idea how long it's going to last, because mostly, look, I'll show you what I've got written down so far. There's my plan for the webinar this evening. I wrote that on the back of, actually I wrote that on the back of some rather nice paint artwork that's obviously come back from preschool today, so I'm probably going to be in trouble for that later on. But it's all in here. I know what it is I need to talk to you about, because it's something I've been actually writing a book about at the moment. The working title is along the lines of why running isn't the best way to lose weight and how to fix it. And that's the key, really. I don't want to just leave you hanging there thinking, well, you know, great, running's crap for weight loss. I want to give you some specific reasons why, and what you can then go ahead and do in order to try and fix that. So first of all, why do I think running is a good thing that you should do? There are many, many reasons why, and one of them, it's something that's so easy, simple to do. I'm not going to use the word easy, because it ain't. And certainly if you've been doing the Beginner's Luck program, you'll know that there's certainly a good physical challenge involved in running. So it's not easy, but it's something that you can do, and you can do from your front door. You don't need particularly any special equipment. All you need is a pair of trainers or runners and a copy of my book, Beginner's Luck Guide for Non-Runners, available on Amazon, and away you go. So it's a great way, because if the only way of getting fit, getting in shape, losing weight was you had to join a gym, or you had to do some kind of circuit training, or you had to do this, then most of us wouldn't do that. Running provides a really accessible way of just starting off on the fitness journey, the health lifestyle journey, and the weight loss journey. So it's always going to be a good thing to do, and it provides so many more benefits as well, positive mental mindset benefits as well, and you learn a lot about yourself. And I know that a lot of you who have been through the program, the Beginner's Luck program, and have gone on beyond that, have really understand me when I say that you will learn a lot about yourself as an individual, your character, your strengths and your weaknesses, and you will grow as a person through running, probably more so than any other type of introductory or beginner type training. So that's why running is a good thing. But why is running not the be all and end all when it comes to trying to lose weight? Well, three main reasons that I'm going to go through this evening. And the first is that you can very easily fall into the trap of what's called chronic cardio. So chronic cardio is where you just train at that slow, steady intensity that I recommend with a beginner's luck program, by the way. This isn't going against what I'm saying. That is exactly what I recommend. I try and encourage you to slow down so that you can go on for longer. And if you're trying to get to a point where you can run for 30, 45 or 60 minutes, then the easiest way of doing that is by slowing down. But if that is all that you do, then you can start to get into this chronic cardio phase where, although you get better at running, you're actually increasing the amounts of stress hormone, cortisol, that's in your body, and that can inhibit fat burning. In fact, you can do the opposite. It can encourage fat storage. And that's not a good thing. That's the opposite of what we want. And because you're not getting your heart rate above the level at which you're going to get this afterburn effect, because you're running and you're holding it at a conversational pace, you're running and you're keeping it nice and comfortable, nice and steady, nice and relaxed, because of all those reasons, which are the right things to do when it comes to weight loss and fat loss in particular, that doesn't give you any afterburn, which means that after the workout's done, that's it. You're not going to be significantly raising your metabolic rate anymore, which means that the effects of that workout end the moment you finish. So that's the first problem, is this chronic cardio, because everything is done at this long, slow, steady pace. The second reason why running isn't the best way to lose weight is the diet. Now, you speak to a runner, and as a beginner runner, you might ask the question of a more experienced runner, well, what do you eat? I'm doing all this running. What is it that I need to eat in order to fuel my performance? You look at the sports nutrition world, and they will tell you the same thing. And the answer you will always get told is carbohydrates. You'll get told that you need to eat so much more in the way of carbohydrates, because that's the runner's fuel. Whether that comes from simple sugars or more unrefined carbohydrates, whole carbohydrates like potatoes, pasta, bread, rice, all these very wholesome, healthy, whole grain, whole meal foods, carbohydrate sources that we are told are essential for fueling our body for all the many miles that we're going to be running. If we don't have that, then we're just not going to have the energy in order to fuel our performance, and we're not going to have the energy to do it, basically. That's what we're told, but that's not the truth. The thing about sports nutrition is there's a lot of money in sports nutrition, and without getting into too much of a conspiracy theory webinar here, there's a lot of money piled in to get us to believe that we need to take more of those products. And if you look at any sports nutrition company, pretty much any sports nutrition company anyway, and what you find is that they nearly all have very, very high levels of refined carbohydrates, whether it's maltodextrin or sucrose or fructose or any of the O's that are going to be converted very, very quickly and rapidly into sugars. You get told you should have this before, you have this during, you have this after. Now that can in some cases be necessary, but not frequently. Certainly not as frequently as sports nutrition companies would have us believe. But the problem is that there's this accepted belief that that's the truth, that that's what we have to do. And runners eat carbohydrates. Most races will have, certainly the big ones, will have pasta parties the night before to fuel up before the race, to carb load. And we're told that we need to do that. And again, in some instances that might be useful. But when you're learning to run, and you're learning to run because mainly you want to lose weight, then that's the almost exact opposite of what you really should be doing. And that's quite a hard thing to really, really wrap your head around, that you need to go against conventional wisdom if you want to get unconventional results. And it can be a simple case. Well, I'll come on to the fixes for this in a bit. But the first thing is just kind of change your mindset that the diet of a runner isn't the best thing for a runner, someone who's out there running 10Ks, half marathons and marathons. And B, it certainly isn't the right thing to be doing if you're just getting into running, because certainly the first 5 or 6 weeks, well, you're only, of my beginner's luck training program, you're only going out for 45 minutes max. So you definitely don't need to be carving up for that. You have plenty of energy in your body, stored in your body, to do that 3 times a week. Absolutely no question about it. The third major reasons why running isn't the best thing is because it gives you this mindset that all you need to do is to go for your run. And this isn't just for beginners. I have so many people, and I have done for years, get in touch with me and say, George, I just started training for a marathon. Like 8 weeks ago, I started training for a marathon. I'm running more than I've ever run in my life, and I'm putting on weight. I mean, how can that be? How can that be even possible? You're expending all that extra energy and you're putting on weight. And the main reason is the mindset that all you have to do to lose weight is to create this calorie deficit, and the way to do that is by running more. It feeds back into the first two, that the exercise, the type of training you're doing, the chronic cardio isn't sufficient, and also that the diet decisions that you're making on a regular, habitual basis, that they're not the right decisions either, because there's too much in the way of carbohydrate in processed foods and sports nutrition and all the rest of it. But we believe that all we have to do is just to run a little bit more and the weight's just going to fall off like magic. But it isn't the case. But we get lulled into this false sense of security that that's what's going to happen. And partly the reason for that is you look at the marathon, for example. You watch any marathon that's on TV. Let's pick the London Marathon because it's the world's most famous. But you look at the London Marathon, and all you see with the whippet-thin elite athletes caning past, looking super skinny, and they're obviously good runners. So the connection is, well, I lose weight, I get better at running, or lots of running. Obviously, they do lots of running, and they've obviously lost a lot of weight as well. Well, first of all, that's completely misleading, because a lot of elite runners, most elite runners, not all, will have always been in that kind of shape. Many of them will have their whole life through been in that kind of shape, and they will have just gone up through the ranks, and they've got faster and faster and faster, and weight has never been a problem. They are probably the exceptions. They can probably eat a lot more carbohydrate, and they can probably afford to train very differently to you and I, and that they will still stay in the same kind of shape. Their goal has got nothing to do with weight loss. If one of your goals is weight loss, then you need to approach running as a tool rather than a whole solution. So the next part is how to fix it. And let's go back to the top and talk about training first of all. Because if you're learning to run, if that's what you're trying to do, you want to learn how to run, and actually, you know what, whether it's weight loss or not, learning how to run can be incredibly fulfilling, especially if you spent your whole life believing that you're not a runner, you can't run, you're not built for running, there's no way you're ever going to be able to run, you can only ever run for a bus. All these things that we tell ourselves, and these are beliefs, these are identities almost, about that we're not a runner, we're not like that. And then you challenge those beliefs, you challenge that identity, and you change who you are, not to become somebody you're not, but you mold yourself, and you start having a different perspective and a different set of beliefs. And then you believe that you can do more. And then because you realize that you can do this, then you can go on, you can do more in other areas of your life. And it is a snowballing, very, very positive motivational effect. But we want to, if we're trying to approach this, and one of the things we want to get out of it is weight loss, then we have to train as though weight loss is one of the priorities. In fact, the word priority, you can only ever have one priority. So you need to decide what that is. Do you just want to get better at running, or do you want to get better at running, but you really want to get a little slimmer as well? You want to lose weight. That's going to help you feel more confident, and all the other reasons why you might want to lose weight. And if the answer is that you want to lose weight, then what you need to do is combine that running with two main things. That's the great news. There's only two things you really need to do. One of them is combining your running with some form of interval training. Now, in the Beginner's Luck program, many people who have been right the way through, I don't even think you have to go through to try this out, but many people who have gone all the way through and haven't gone on to do the running apprentice, which brings in interval training, but you get to a point where you can run for, say, 10 to 15 minutes non-stop. If you can do that, then you can do interval training. Because all you do with interval training is you run a little bit faster than you would normally run, then you run a little bit slower, and that might be a walk. You run a bit faster, then you run a bit slower. So it's not going to take you any longer to do that, but it's going to increase the intensity, and by increasing the intensity, you increase that metabolic effect after the run, which means that you have a this afterburn effect. So you're actually going to be burning more calories, specifically fat calories, fat energy from your body after you finish the runs. You close, shut the front door, you sit down, kick your trainers off, and you're still burning fuel. You're still burning fat for fuel. Now, what some people have done with the Beginner's Luck program is they've gone back to the beginning and they've gone back and done Bobcat week again, but instead of just running for a minute and walking for a minute and running for a minute, walking for a minute, or whatever, then they've run fast for a minute and jog for a minute, run fast for a minute and jog for a minute. It's all about relative intensities. And when I say fast, I'm talking about fast for you. I'm not talking about fast for anybody else. This is all about you and how fast, what fast means compared to what your average pace is. And many runners, beginner runners, they kind of freak out or get worried or embarrassed almost that their running pace is only marginally quicker than walking pace. In fact, some cases they're being overtaken by walkers. And I say, yes, you're doing it right. If that's the case, then that's exactly what you want to do to get better at running and to be able to run for longer and longer periods of time. But when it comes to fat burning, if you can do that slow, steady pace for 10 minutes, I'll bet that you can go fast for 1 minute before having to have a rest, and then go fast for another minute, and then have another rest. And that might be stopping and walking, might be jogging slowly. Either way, I'll bet that you can pick up that pace for a shorter period of time if you can run for 10 minutes or more at a slow pace. That's the first thing that we need to start doing, is bringing in some interval training to your weekly program, and maybe once or twice a week if that's the case. The second thing that we can really benefit from for weight loss and for general fitness, and this feeds into training and other aspects of running as well, is some kind of body conditioning. And this is where you work things like press-ups and squats and lunges and burpees and planking and all those great exercises that are going to work your whole body, not just the running muscles. It's going to get your heart rate up. It's going to work more muscles in your body than just the legs. So you're bringing in this very, very compressed, condensed, intense period of training where everything's working. Your heart rate's working, everything's working as well. And again, you get this afterburn effect. Now that has then a knock-on effect to your running. And I know the question you're going to ask, can you do that in addition to your 3 runs a week? Absolutely. And it doesn't have to take very long either. I've got a stack of 10-minute programs. The website you're watching this on now, if you're on the inats.club website, this is a private membership website with stacks of 10-minute, 5 to 10 minute at home follow along with programs where you just work out with me, and that is exactly what you need to be doing. Not working out with me necessarily, but you need to be doing some kind of body conditioning training in order to pick up that metabolism, to raise the heat of the furnace in your body, so that again after the workout you're constantly burning more fat for fuel. If you've ever done a tough training session or you've been really, really physically active for a prolonged period of time, you take your heart rate the next day, and I bet you find that your heart rate is still elevated. When your heart rate is elevated like that, that's a sign that your body is still burning fat. It's still having to pump more oxygenated blood around the body. You're still working out in the fat burning zone, even though you're sitting down on the couch. It doesn't get any better than that, apart from you've got to do the work to get to that position in the first place. Okay, let's cover off diet as well, because I talked about how I recommend you revisit your beliefs about how much carbohydrate you should be eating, consuming through the day, regardless of whether you trained or not. Some people think, well, okay, well, I've run today, therefore I need to carb up afterwards. And otherwise you're going to have no energy for the next run. Well, frankly, if you're only running for an hour or less, you really don't need to have any extra carbohydrates. In fact, what I recommend is that you back off the amount of carbohydrates that you eat. Really reduce down how much sugars, definitely the sugars, but also the starchy carbohydrates that you're eating on a regular basis. Just don't cut it out completely if you're not, unless you're ready for it, but just minimize it. And if you're doing that, then you have to do something else as well, and that's add in something extra. If you're reducing the amount of carbohydrates, if you just did that, you're going to get hungry and you're going to get depressed and you're not going to stick to it. So what I recommend you do is you bulk things up. And if you can give your body the nutrients that it needs, then it's going to repay you. It's going to repay you by stripping off that body fat that you don't want to be holding on to. It's going to repay you by giving you the energy that you crave. So you're not feeling sluggish in the afternoons. You're not waking up like you've just gone to bed first thing in the morning. You're not reaching for the coffee and croissants or muffins in the morning because you've got to get something to kickstart your systems. Your skin's going to be better. Your hair's going to be better. Your fingernails are going to be stronger and clearer. You're going to feel better. You're going to feel more motivated. You're going to feel more energized. You're going to feel like you're sleeping better. Your body's going to repay you if you give it what it needs. And what it needs isn't carbohydrates. What it needs are nutrients. So when I'm talking nutrients, I'm talking veggies. I'm talking high density foods, green vegetables, any other vegetables, particularly the green ones. I'm also talking about healthy fats. Get coconut oil into your life. Get oily fish into your life. Get nuts and seeds into your life. Get avocados into your life. Get all these really super healthy foods into your life. And a magical thing happens as your body stops craving the sugars and the carbohydrates that you perhaps do at the moment. So that's the thing to do with your nutrition. It's just a shift. And I recognize that this takes more than just a webinar to make those changes. Hopefully it puts you on the right track, but investigate this further, experiment with yourself, find out what works for you. I know many runners who run very, very fast marathons and they don't eat any carbohydrates. Now, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about reducing, because if you want to lose weight, then that's the thing that you really, really need to be looking at doing, is reducing the amount of carbohydrates you eat. Excess carbohydrates will be stored as fat. End of. That's what happens. You've only got a certain capacity for storing carbohydrates. It doesn't take much to fill those muscles up with glycogen, fill the liver up with glycogen. Everything else, unless you're using it immediately, is going to get stored, and it's going to get stored as fat. So, and we talked about cortisol, the stress hormone, earlier. If you tend to store fat around your tummy, then I've got really bad news for you, because the cortisol, which is a stress hormone, it's produced in the adrenal glands on top of the kidneys. And what that does is it actually sensitizes the fat cells in the abdominal region so that you become more predisposed to storing fat in that region. That's like a double whammy. Like, thanks, body. Great. So back off the carbs, see what a difference it makes. Just monitor how you feel when you make some changes to your diet. The third thing we talked about here was the mindset. And again, this can be quite a tricky one to challenge. We've already talked a little bit about that, how you need to challenge the idea that because you're running, you have to carb up, but also challenge the idea that because you're running, you're automatically going to lose weight. It's a great start. Think of running as a punctuation to your week. It's a reminder that you're doing something positive, you're doing something healthy, you're doing something that's going to help you get to where you want to be. But it's a tool. It's not the full system. You need to make some changes to the way you think. And actually, the very fact that you're on this webinar, watching this tonight, that tells me that you are already making some changes, because you know that what you're doing at the moment either isn't working, or that you're looking at making a few tweaks to it to see if you can accelerate the kind of gains that you're getting at the moment. If you're absolutely fine, you're not looking to lose any more weight, you've got the physique that you want, and it's not it's just not of interest to you, then you probably figured that out by now with the webinar. You probably left ages ago. But if it's even remotely of interest to you, then those three things are probably the things that are holding you back right now. And there are three ways that you can fix it. I'm aware that it's not always straightforward to pick that up and just run with it. And I'll tell you a little bit later on about the INATS Club, because I think for many of you watching this, it would be a really, really good add-on benefit to you in terms of helping you plug the holes and fill the gaps in your training, so that you can take what you're doing at the moment with the running, continue with that, but then fill it in with all the other bits that we just talked about there, the changes to your diet, so you know exactly what you need to eat. The additional workouts that don't take very long at all. I'm not talking about joining a gym and training 5 days a week and being in there for an hour lifting heavy weights. I'm talking about 10-minute workouts you can do at home. That's all I'm talking about. and I've got a stack of them on the website that you're on right now, that show you exactly how to do that. And I'm talking about the mindset changes as well. One of I've had a lot of fun actually with this over the last 3 weeks. I've written a 21-day habit breaker program where every day you get a separate email that uses a lot of NLP mindset techniques. There's a series of audio downloads, 4 different audio downloads that will really help you understand why you have certain habits and how you can change those habits. The Habit Breaker program is, I think, it's one of the best programs I've ever written. And if you do say so myself. But we've got a load of other stuff in there. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Iron Out Stop Club at some other time, because I do think it's something worthwhile having a look at. What I'm going to do now, however, is I'm going to have a look at questions. In fact, I'm going to do it on my iPhone here just to see if there's anything coming questions-wise. I know there were a couple of questions before we started. Let me have a look. We have a looky see here. Can't find the post now. Hang on a sec. Sorry, bear with me. Here we go. Beginner's luck. That's where we are. Righty. So, 23 comments. Let's see how many of these questions we can get through. So first up, then, I'm looking for questions. Hazel. When apps like Map My Run say you've used up XXX calories after run, how accurate is that? 2 answers. Not very, unless it knows what if it's taken information like age and weight and height and gender, if it's got some kind of indication as to what your real maximum heart rate is, then it can give you a rough and ready idea. It can be useful to know how many calories you've burned in a session, and this is the second reason why it's not accurate, because what you shouldn't do is to compare that to the number of hobnobs you can then go ahead and eat. Or glasses of wine you can then drink, because the correlation there is so out of whack. We're not looking at energy deficit, energy balance. That's just not how we roll. But what we can do with that is we can say, well, look, I burned 300 calories at this session last week, and today I burnt 330. I've worked 10% harder this week, or I've done 10% more. You can compare like for like, as long as the system, you have that faith that the system is giving you a roughly accurate response. A question from Vicky: how true is it that, this is a good one, I read this one briefly earlier, how true is it that you burn roughly the same number of calories per mile, however fast or slow you go, because you spend longer exercise when you go slower, lower calorie burning, but the same number? It's completely true. If you walk a mile or you run a mile, you'll burn the same number of calories. The difference, though, is in what happens after that mile is over. If you're running a mile, that might take you 10 minutes, for example. If you walk a mile, it might take you 15 minutes. If you run a mile and then you run the mile at 8 minutes, so you're running an 8-minute mile pace, that's a 1:45 half marathon, a 3:30 marathon, by the way. If you were to do that, you're running a little bit quicker. And if that's a challenge to you, then after the workout, after the run, then you're going to have that afterburn effect. So you might burn the same number of calories during the session, but you'll burn more calories after the session. And more importantly, those calories, they're going to come from fat, because you're working out, sitting around, but you're in the fat burning zone. So that's a good question. Emma says, and how can you not lose weight if you're burning calories? You don't believe me, Emma? I don't believe I've been called out. You can lose weight, and this is the point. You can lose weight, but one of the problems is how you then replace those calories. If you made no changes whatsoever to your diet, and you took up running and you were burning an extra 500 calories every single day and nothing else changed, then ultimately you're going to lose weight. But that's not how most people do it. And the number of calories you burn with even an hour of slow running, it's not going to be a significant amount compared to what you could put in 10 minutes of eating. And you're likely to have that increased appetite and all those other things. So technically you're right, but the way most people approach running, as I just outlined earlier, that isn't the way it works. Andrew, a big no. Okay, hang on a sec. A couple of you saying you can't see me. Hopefully you can see me now. I can see I've got a few viewers. Great. And Dawn says, this is really good. Great info and advice, though I'm sitting here after circuits eating cheese on toast. Well, at least you were doing circuits, Dawn, and that's one of the things I recommend. Here's a question. When within the beginners program do you suggest you bring an interval training? Is that in addition to your 3 runs a week? Okay, that's a great question. That's from Charlie Cabell. Brilliant question, Charlie. Like I said, if you can run for, let's say you can run for 10 minutes, then you would be physically capable then of doing an interval training session. And what I would suggest doing is, if you really, really wanted to get stuck in interval training straight away, is to do it once you can get comfortably to 10 minutes. And do it as one of your 1 runs. So don't do it as well as, do it instead of. So 2 easy runs or beginners like runs, and then 1 interval session where you might go back and do the Bobcat week, but as intervals. You might be more in terms of kind of psychologically, the mindset of it. I would probably wait until you can comfortably run for at least 20, ideally half an hour. Because that way you know that you're going out, and you know, however far you get, you can always jog home, walk home, because you've got the ability to run straight out for 30 minutes, and that's quite a nice position to be in. If you wanted to get stuck into this stuff before, then I would suggest going into doing more of the body conditioning work first. Oh, it sounds like some of you are having trouble with the sound, so apologies for that. And Vicky says, how to stop cortisol being promoted if it promotes fat storage? I always find running hills stressful, and imagine the interval training would be even worse. And yet, when you train, you do produce cortisol, and there's no to worry about it. You need it. You probably heard of the fight or flight response. So you produce adrenaline, and the adrenaline is a precursor to cortisol. So you produce both of these fight or flight responses, and that mobilizes sugars into your bloodstream, so you've got the ability to use it. So you actually need it because you want those sugars in the bloodstream so you can get out there and you can use it straight away. However, lots and lots of chronic cortisol, lots and lots of chronic cardio can produce an increase in your residual levels of cortisol, and especially if you combine that with not getting enough sleep, with having a diet high in sugars, which are very, very inflammatory, and stimulants like coffee, which will also add to the cortisol load in your body, then the cortisol levels that are there all the time, they just creep up and up and up, and that's where you start getting problems. An interval training session in and out, and you'll find that the cortisol levels will be there, but they're going to mobilize as blood sugars, and you're going to use those blood sugars, and you're not going to have the same effect on the fat being stored, or so the sugars being stored, as in your fat cells. So I hope that kind of answers that question there, Vicky. But yes, it's stressful. They can be. Hill training can be stressful. Let's have a look. I was going to see if there's anybody asked to join, because I did say that I'd let some people in if they requested to join Beginner's Luck. Members. Oh, okay, a couple of people are there asking to join. That's cool. Right, so there we go. You're both in. Oh, here we go. I think we've got another question coming in. There's about a 15-second delay on this, by the way. So if you do have a question, ask it now, and I'll get to it. Okay, another question from Charlie. What amount of carbohydrates do you recommend for the diet? Some great questions coming in tonight. But this one is a question that everybody wants to know the answer to, but there is no answer. There's no, if you weigh 150 pounds, then you should be having 5 grams or 4 grams per pound of your body weight. If you're a woman between the age of 30 and 45, then you should be having 3 grams per pound. It doesn't work like that, because everybody's different. The way to find out how much carbohydrate you need in your diet, and I don't recommend going down the line of weighing food, unless you particularly want to and you want to be uber scientific about it. But what I recommend you do is you experiment. And I've always believed I'm an experiment of one, and I believe that you are too. So Charlie, I want you to find out how much carbohydrate is required for you. But the number you give me isn't going to be the same as the amount of carbohydrates that's required for me, or Vicky, or Hazel, or anybody else who's on the call tonight, because everybody is different. And when I say how much is required, the real question is required for what? Because it's not just required for weight loss. It's required for weight loss in conjunction with feeling the energy. So feeling like you've got the energy, you're not constantly tired and sluggish, because some people do feel like that if you cut out the carbohydrates. And give it a few days, by the way, if you do decide to drop your carbs right down, give it a few days to stabilize, because you probably will go through a bit of almost a detoxing phase where you feel a bit crap to start off with, and then you start come out the other side and you feel like a fog has been lifted. It's incredible the response that people give once they've come out of the other side of the detox. But the other factor to consider is, how practical is it? Now, how practical is it for you, and how much stress is it going to give you if you get the perfect diet, but your stress levels go up as well, because it's so hard to manage that. And it might just be they're not quite ready to go full on, in which case then the right amount for you might be down here somewhere. If you're down here at the moment, up here is perfect, and you get to here, I'd say you're doing pretty well. So consider those things in answer to your question. But yeah, experiment and find out what you need. Cut back a little bit, cut back a bit more, and see how it affects performance, see how it affects your results with weight loss and everything else. A couple more questions. Is there a preference to evening or morning training, biologically, not mentally? Not really. There have been studies to say that you burn more fat if you train in the morning, but that's if you're in a fasted state, i.e. you're training before breakfast, there can be benefits to fat burning then. But that means getting up in the morning, running before breakfast, so on an empty stomach, just with water in your system. You know, that's not everyone's cup of tea. I do it quite a lot, but you know, it works for me, it doesn't work for everybody. And I haven't always done it. I used to have something to eat first thing in the morning, but not anymore, it seems. But also, if mornings are just not going to work for you, because practically, then it's not going to work, no matter how good it is. So train at the time that you can train at. But the difference will be minimal. It really will. And Lindsay says, I'm training for the Bath Half. What would you recommend for breakfast for morning runs over an hour? Well, let me tell you this, Lindsay, actually, interesting story. I did 10 back-to-back marathons in September. And when I was training for these marathons, what I was doing was I was going out and I was leaving the house. I trained through the summer. And I was training and I was going out at I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And I was leaving the house at 4:45 so that I could do a 22-mile run and then come home and go to work. And I was getting up in the morning and I was going out and I was running completely on empty. So I wasn't having anything at all to eat. I was having water. I was having a thing of lean greens, and then I was just going out for my run. I didn't take any water with me. I didn't take any fuel with me. Now, the reason I say that is because I found that it didn't affect my performance at all during the run. But after the run, I was incredibly tired, and the next day I was incredibly tired, and my recovery was much slower. So it's not just nutrition for performance on the day, it's nutrition for performance the next day. That said, you could still go and run that on empty, but you'd want to be fueling as you go. And I use 33 Shake, which is based on chia seeds, which means that I'm not getting all the high sugar maltodextrin based commercial sports nutrition company products into my system when I eat. The rest of the time I eat reasonably well. But if you're going to have something, then for me personally, I would have something like oats soaked overnight in almond milk, chuck in some almonds, chuck in some bananas, mix in some yogurt, and probably have a little bit of cinnamon in there as well, some raisins, maybe some chia seeds. Sounds quite decadent, but that's how I start pretty much every day. And soaking oats, by the way, is a great way of cooking, of preparing oats instead of cooking them. Breaks down the phytic acid, which can inhibit absorption of other nutrients into your bloodstream, into your body, without changing the glycemic index, which cooking them into porridge can do. So there's a little bonus tip for you there. So yeah, again, you've got to experiment. You might be able to go on empty. You might need a banana. You might need some oats. You might need, a bowl of cornflakes might work best for you with milk. You've got to find out what works best. There is no one size fits all solution. So play around with it. I'm going to write some stuff about running and nutrition for the ONATS program, by the way. Vicky says, how much carbs do you eat per day on a good day, on a not so good day? Are you trying to imply I have not so good days, Vicky? Or is it for yourself? I'll answer the question, but the answer is irrelevant for anybody who's trying to lose weight, because I'm a bit of a freak in the sense that I don't ever have to worry about putting on weight. In fact, I find it incredibly difficult to put on weight. and I'll never get over the 90 kilo mark, which is, I would love to get over 90 kilos, but it's just not going to happen for me. It's never happened and never will. Not just through putting on weight through eating loads of crap food and carbohydrates, but by training. And if I was putting on loads of muscle mass, then I'm still not going to get over 90 kilos. So for me, weight loss is the exact opposite that I'm looking for. So my answer is, I'll tell you just out of a point of interest, but take no notice of it in terms of what you need and what you want. So for me, I would start the day as I described there with my oats. I would normally have a fairly protein and nutrient-rich lunch. So on a typical day, I might have 5 scrambled eggs in a load of butter and a big mountain of baby leaf spinach and some olive oil and some pumpkin seeds. If I'm feeling, again, a bit flash, then I'll have some smoked salmon with that as well, and maybe some avocado, but that's on a less regular basis there. In the afternoon, what would I have in the afternoon? I don't normally snack a huge amount in the afternoon. I maybe have like, I make these paleo bites, or I get these paleo bites, which is basically, they're pretty low carb. So I wouldn't have a huge amount there, but my evening meal, I would have carbohydrates with my evening meal that I can quite easily go without. So I would have things like sweet potato, I'd have rice, occasionally I'll have wheat-free pasta, or a jacket potato, or a roast sweet potato, a jacket sweet potato rather. But if I don't have that, it probably happens as much as it doesn't happen, then I have to have an enormous quantity of everything else. Because if I don't, then I just get hungry. I'll finish my meal, and literally within 30 minutes, I'm hungry again. And the way I do that is I, first of all, mound up the veggies, and also mound up the amount of fats that I'm eating. And if I'm not getting enough, then I often have a couple of teaspoons of coconut oil, either by itself, or I'll have them in the morning. I'll have them in a cup of coffee, or I'll have them chucked into a smoothie, which I'll also have lots of smoothies. So fruit, I'll eat a fair bit of fruit, chuck in some veggies into the smoothie as well. So I mix it up. So my day is pretty well balanced. And even though I'm having more carbs than I'd recommend someone on a weight loss program to have, I would also make the point that I'm also eating all the nutrients that my body needs. And for me, part of my mission is just is to eat more. I find it very hard to eat enough, which I know is probably not a thing to say on a seminar webinar about weight loss and running. But like I said, don't take any of my personal situation as indication of what you should do. I also find that very difficult, actually. Thanks for asking that question, by the way. But I find it very difficult because a lot of coaches who coach on weight loss, they've kind of been there and done that. No, I haven't. I've always been like this. And I've had my own hang-ups, my own body hang-ups, and I was really skinny as a kid, and it used to affect me, and used to let anybody let on about that, but it did, and it affects your confidence. So I get the psychological thing, but even now I'm still kind of very conscious of the way I look and how much training I'm doing and how that's affecting my body type. But if you're, I've worked with literally thousands of people over the last 12 years, and I kind of get a pretty good feel for what's important and what works, but also what the major hang-ups are and the major issues. And when people come to me and they say, I want to lose weight and tone up, I know that that's not the most important reason. It just isn't. It never is. There's always something deeper. I haven't ever had one person who's told me that and then there hasn't been something deeper. When you get serious on that, and when you uncover what that is, then things become a lot easier, because you can be truthful with yourself, and you can start training and eating in order to fuel the real result that you want. And the whole point of INATs, it's not about the scales. It isn't about the scales. Weight loss is a side effect of creating the habits that we talk about in the program. So it's difficult to, if you're focusing on weight loss, then chances are you're always going to be frustrated. A lot of these questions are very, very intelligent questions, because they're not focusing on just, right, what do I need to eat in order to lose weight? But looking at some of the right, how do I put this into practice questions, that's what we're getting on here. There's a couple more coming in, actually. So Charlie says, you've spoken about carbs and veggies. What about proteins? Yeah, proteins too. And actually as runners, we need a fair bit of protein. So if you're eating meat and fish, nuts, seeds, legumes, quinoa is a great vegetarian source of protein, as are beans and legumes. and then you're probably going to be getting enough. If you're struggling, then you can supplement. If you're going to supplement with protein, then I would recommend something like a hemp protein or a pea protein, something that is unless you have absolutely no problems with milk products, dairy products, then a good quality whey protein can be okay. But I'll steer clear of all the kind of the big whey gainers and the big protein powders that have a lot of other stuff in them as well. You just want pure protein. Go to myprotein.co.uk if you want to get one, because they've got a great range. You can just put in hemp protein, it'll come up with them. They have them in a pack, like a plastic pack, so you don't pay loads of money for packaging, and they're very, very good. That's where I get my stuff from. Fiona, George, could you post what you said there about the food porridge to have after a morning run? The sound really doesn't want. Okay, so you have a problem with the sound. Run after the school run on empty or a protein shake. Okay, so you're again having a fasted training, going back into full training as after surgery, recovery bag. Yeah, recommendations for going back in 0-60. Okay, so that's a slightly different question. I'll type a question, an answer to that, Fiona. It sounds like you can't get the sound properly on it anyway. If anybody has another question, I'm going to finish up fairly soon. We've got about 50 minutes there. So ask away, because I've got to refresh this. Another book. Andrew, is that another book? As in, you want a book recommendation, or you heard me say I'm writing another book? I am writing another book. I've got about maybe halfway to 2/3 of the way through it. The way I write the book is kind of a note format, and create all the structure. Then I put the details in later on. So I've done all the note format. I've just got the structure. I've got to put the beef onto the bones of it now. And that's probably about a month's worth of work. I just got sidetracked with running the 10 marathons, and then after that, things have just gone crazy over the last 3 months in a good way. But it's certainly something for the new year. So that's and it's gonna kind of build on what we've talked about here in this evening's webinar. And so there'll be a lot more. Obviously, there's a lot more information. There's a lot more how-to information. If you want to find out more about inats.club, there's scant information on the main website. If you just get rid of the /free-webinar bit. And go to the bottom of this page and click on, I think it says something like not a member, find out more. Click on that and it'll tell you a little bit more about what's involved. I've got an incredible little program that I'm putting together, which will be within INATS. So everything's included within the inats.club membership, which is only 30 quid if you want to just stay for a month, or 30 quid a month if you want to stay beyond that. But the Christmas Survival Guide is going to absolutely you're going to love it. If you've been doing the Plankathon, if you haven't, go to plankathon.com and sign yourself up. It's free 14-day plank-based program that we've got 5,500 people sign up to at the moment. In the last 2 weeks, that's gone brilliantly. But I've got some great stuff planned for the Christmas period that's just going to help you get through that point, get through that phase without feeling like you're starting the new year from scratch, or you've just got to spend the first 2 or 3 weeks finding your feet, getting back on track again, because that's just depressing as well. Nobody wants that. But we at the same time want to enjoy Christmas, enjoy our food, enjoy our overindulgences without any feeling of guilt, without any worry and doubt that we're just going to be undoing all the hard work we've done over the other 11 months of the year. You can have it all, and I'm going to show you how, as well as being very, very specific and precise with exactly what you need to do to basically cover off all the points that we talked about in this evening's webinar. That is all inside the inats.club membership. And if you want access, just go to inats.club, hit the join now button. You're going to PayPal, you pay 30 quid. You've got 7 days to check it out. If you think it's a load of crap, then just ask me for your money back and I'll happily do that. I think you're going to love it. So check it out, and I'll be back over on the Facebook group. I might check in later on, see if there's any more questions come in there. But otherwise, if you join the INATS, then I will be in touch very soon with what you need to do next and how to get the most out of it, and how to really, really dominate this Christmas. Because I've got I'm excited for you if you get involved with the INATS Club over the next few days and join for the December month. Thank you very much for being with me on this evening's webinar. We actually ended up with a nice, decent attendance there. So thanks for that. Thanks for the questions. And as always, your enthusiasm for the book and the other things that I do, I really, really appreciate it. And I'll be around on hand to answer any of your running related questions in the next few days. Thank you very much.